Okay, hi guys, welcome back to another video. Sorry it's been such a long time. I've got a bit of personal life stuff at the moment, so stuff has got in the way. So it's been a bit difficult trying to do a video really. And we have to move out at the end of the year, so that's all fun and games. So today's video is going to be about British soldier, 1917, around the time of Third Battle of Ypres, so Paschendale, Cambrai sort of time. Quick thing before we sort of properly begin, a couple of items are supplemented because I do not have the actual item here. I do not own that item yet, generally because due to funds and that at the moment, especially with having to pay rent, it's a bit of a thing trying to buy certain things here and there which can be a bit pricey. So the first one I want to mention is the tunic on this. It's not a 1902. This is currently an KD officer's tunic. Very, very similar to the KD officer's tunic worn in the First World War, but similar to sort of fairly. There's not very much of a change from the first to the second, but apart from minor details. And the respirator is a Second World War version, but for all intents and purposes, it is, in case-wise, practically the same as the box respirator issued, small box respirator issued during at the beginning of 1917 onwards, replacing the hypo hood which had been issued beforehand, which was kept in a small little pouch about that large or so over the on a strap over the soldier's chest. So going from head to toe, well, they're the only really things that need to be addressed really in here about not being exactly the correct one. So if you put in the comments, please, I have put at the beginning of the video that some things aren't as be. Okay, cracking on from head to toe, or head to waist even, because he has no legs. We have the aforementioned Brodie helmet, or the Steel Helmet Mark 1, beginning to be issued in late 1915, and would go slight minor adjustments throughout the war. Basically, calling back to the old styles or medieval helmets of that period for all-round thing. So when in a trench, you have cover from anything coming really from the top, if it be debris or large clumps of earth or things of that nature. Again, people have this thing that helmets are bulletproof. They're not, especially steel helmets. They're not. You might be lucky you'll be lucky when they might be able to graze around, coming at sort of an angle. Might be able to skim around off if it hits it at a certain angle, but straight on it won't stop around. It's not designed to be bulletproof. It's designed to give you protection at anything really but rifle and pistol rounds really. But I think there's this thing. Basically, it was the issue because deaths from head wounds was huge during the early parts of the Great War. So nations started to begin issuing troops with protection for their head. So very, very iconic of the British soldier. When an issue right up until the midway through the Second World War, when it was beginning to be replaced by the Mark III, then later the Mark IV and Mark V turtle-shaped helmets. Obviously with slight minor adjustments from the liner and that between the wars. Moving down, come on to the small box respirator. As I said, this is a Second World War example, but the bag itself is practically the same as would be used in the First World War. One main flap with studs to keep it closed. 3 main compartments. One to keep accoutrements, one to keep the actual filter, and the other one to keep the respirator itself. Secured by canvas strap, webbing strap that goes round back of the neck, and then with a cord line that goes round the wearer, and then through the, if I turn it around, just turn it around, can't really, if you could just see on the camera actually there, so a cord that goes round through the loop and back round to the respirator on the other side. My friend Simon on the Rifleman Moore channel goes into very much detail about respirators and how they're worn, especially during the Second World War. But it basically it was common practice by Second World War to do it in this way, and it was part of how it was to be worn. So to keep it high on the chest and stop it from moving around when travelling and that, so it wouldn't be flapping around, and it keeps it tight to the body and easy in reach of the wearer if need to deploy it, especially in the First World War in case of gas attack. Pardon me. Moving down, what the gentleman has on is a leather jerkin, especially during times of Paschendale and that with the mud, etc. It's very well. It's an item that was introduced late. Early 1915 going onwards, replacing the sort of sheepskin style jerkins that were being worn in the winter of 1914, which were very warm, but the smell was quite bad, and they weren't very versatile because they were very big. They were very cumbersome in a way. You could only really use them if you were in static position. Not very good when you're trying to do manual work in that. They get very uncomfortable. This is a fantastic piece of clothing. Not the most glamorous, but in order you could fight in it, you could sleep in it, you could do everything in it, and it kept your uniform fairly clean as well, because it being leather, it was all just wiped down, etc. And a very good piece of equipment, and did keep you warm as well. That's that. This is a I believe it's a post World War II example, but it's practically the same as you used throughout the First World War and the Second World War, and being used before that as well. And especially original examples were used by guys well after the Second World War into their manual labour, into their civilian jobs as well, because they're very good work garments. The First World War examples would have normally leather buttons. This has got plastic types because it's a later one. I think it's actually a Belgian one, actually, I can't remember, or a Dutch one. It's practically the same. So they had leather buttons. Moving down again, before we get into the main equipment, we have a bandolier here containing 50 rounds of .303 for the use of the rifleman. So especially during later going on from say things like the Somme and that, guys were being issued with a lot more ammunition than standard, especially later on in the war. Say for the assault, to be able to attack a position, fight the enemy in that position, and when taking it, be able to hold that position and have enough ammunition to continue a defence or a push onto another objective, without having to rely on ammunition being brought up from the rear, which could be difficult in them sort of circumstances with artillery, etc., and possible strong points of the enemy holding down an area, so it being very difficult or almost impossible to get ammunition or say water especially up to certain positions. So it holds 50 rounds of .303, 2 charges of 5 rounds held in each pocket. I've had some repairs to this because it's falling apart a bit, but basically this one's sort of a hook clasp. Some examples have studs, some examples just loop over. There's many different ones because of different manufacturers, etc. This one's a Second World War example, but it's practically the same as what was being used from the Great War onwards, really. Being replaced by a nylon example when getting into the late part of the 70s into the 80s. Excuse me. Then moving to the main equipment itself, we have the 1908 pattern equipment webbing set. So it is probably a modern bit of equipment being used at the start of the Great War, and well on into the end of it, really. The Americans were one of the other only few nations to use a canvas-style webbing with theirs, but theirs was mainly on a pistol belt as standard and everything. But as it goes, this was a much more, I would say, useful piece of equipment, because it was all your stuff was kept into one jacket-style item, which kept everything with you if you needed it. You could ditch one part or whatever, and it was all very much a I can't think of the word, sort of modular style thing, which was very, very good. So it consists of two main cross straps of a 2-inch diameter webbing that cross over the back, loop on in buckles in the back of the belt, come over and attach to buckles at the top of the ammunition pouches at the front. So each ammunition pouch is 5 singular pouches, each can hold 3 5-round charges of 303. So 5 on each side, each encompassing to about 150 rounds. And then normally the guy would either carry 1 or 2 extra bandoliers, taking it up to about 200 to 250 rounds, which is plenty enough to attack a position or a trench, take that trench in a small fight or whatever with any Germans or so that are left, and then be able to hold that trench from any German counterattack when they take their position back. The belt itself is a large buckle style arrangement. So the main strap on the left side would come through this loop here and come back on itself. So as the wearer would be standing, you could pull on the loose tab here to then tighten the belt itself. So it's a very, very useful style system. It's a large, thick, which I'd say about 3 inches in diameter. If I just turn it around to the side, move the arm out here. So hanging off the loose webbing straps at the bottom, I must say though, this webbing set is a bit of a it's a budget example of the ones that, the reproductions that are on offer at the moment. I was very, very tight for cash at the time, and these sets can be very expensive. So this one's a Indian-made one, reproduction. So large webbing straps coming off the side, which attach to the water bottle and carrier. Water bottle at the time. So the start of the examples had sort of like a fluted spout to them, which would be later phased out going into the war, just to be like the straight kind with the cork plug. During the war, bottles were of the green felt cover, the khaki felt cover, and then had a blue bottle. This one's a Second World War example. I do have a RAF one, which I will be putting a khaki cover onto it soon. Going round to the other side. So the water bottle would hold about I'm trying to remember. It's about 2 pints as far as I remember, or 1 quart. I can't remember the exact measurement of the water carried. So onto this side, as you can clearly see, the actual layout of the ammunition pouches. Going down, we have the man's 1907 bayonet, which would fit onto his Lee Enfield rifle, short magazine Lee Enfield. Attached to that, if I just lift up the pack here, would be the handle for his entrenching tool. Just lift it up there. Handle for his entrenching tool, which would be attached to the bayonet in this fashion. So the bayonet itself is 17 inches of cold steel. This one's Reaper example, it's a bit damaged as well. Most of the things I have for the First World War are reproduction or stand-ins, really, because stuff is very, very pricey and that, and with collections and with awards, you get the gist. So there's that. Moving down from that, we have the 1908 haversack. In this configuration, worn on the belt. It can be worn on the back here, with the addition of 2 large buckle style loops, which would be placed onto the webbing straps. And then at any time, this small haversack or the large 1908 pack could be placed onto it and then secured down the bottom here. So as in this configuration, it's worn on the hip of the belt. Mainly sort of an early war style of thing, but a lot of guys, especially Australian, I see a picture of Australians and that, especially wearing it in this style, generally because it was easier to get to, so you didn't have to take off your webbing to then access your access your haversack, which was on your back, or get someone to remove it. This way it was sort of easy to get to, really. Can be a bit slightly inconvenient with sort of it being a big bulk on the side, but all in all it's not too bad. So this will be containing your rations, any spare like socks or something, anything really to keep you warm, and personal stuff really. Okay, moving around. On the back here, as I said to you, so let's move this up quickly. So the crossing over of the cross straps, and then show you the back of the belt where the buckles attach to the straps on the back of the belt. And then here is the cord that comes round from the respirator. This is style, it could be any really which way it could be really passed through. I've probably got this incorrectly done. I've sort of set it up, I was trying to get it to go right really. And then the strap of the bandolier. And just below the belt, next to the water bottle and the small haversack, is the cover for the head of the entrenching tool. So you saw the handle for the entrenching tool on the side. Here is where the head goes, so the 1908 head. The same helve and head trenching tool would be used again in the 37 pattern webbing during the Second World War. It was useful for small shell scrapes, and that was really it. Everything else will be basically done with the general service shovel, which was very, very useful and much sought after by troops, because this thing is fairly useless. The handle itself was good actually for something like say guard duty or trench clearing, especially as a club. It was very good for things like that. Apart from that, but obviously later editions in the Second World War would add a fixture for the spike bayonet in the Second World War for the handle itself, which made it a good mine clearing device. But apart from that, holes in here, small tab comes over and attaches with a press stud, and all hooks and lower the belt. That's basically it. Obviously the standard service rifle would be, would be the Lee Enfield service rifle. So this one is a #1 Mark III Star. This one's a 1918 one, made by BSA. Sorry, just opening the cover, the breech cover. So as you see, so anyone who doesn't really know the Lee Enfield, hopefully most of you do. 10 round box fed magazine, but sorry, 10 round box magazine rifle, bolt action, fed with charges. So if I just spin this lovely gentleman around quickly, excuse me, I'm doing this cack-handedly. I'm trying to do it all in one take. Excuse me, I'm doing this cack-handedly. So, as I said, so from the charges, so open that. Charger here, place into the charger guide, and you would thumb in the rounds, and you could put 2 of these charges in, if necessary. With earlier versions, so from the early parts of the war, and even with the Longleys, which were pressed into service and added with charger guides, would have cut-offs, so magazine cut-offs. So basically it's like a slot of steel which would be when pushed in would cover the magazine so as to single load the weapon itself. Mainly guys used it as sort of a safety mechanism so they could keep the bolt closed and rounds in the magazine, so if need be they could just open it and just carry on. So, but that's really a main device for it. So sight goes up to 2,000 yards on its dial sight. So leaf sight even, sorry. Leaf sight? I can't remember. So adjust for windage, and then elevation is pushing this here, and then the arm moves up so you could range in your shot. And is post sight here with the protective wings on the side there. Earlier examples, so for the number 1 Mark III as it stands would have a flip up volley sight here, which would flip up sort of tall sort of post, and then would have the dial on round about here for say volleying. By that point, British troops were trained as say a platoon or even a company to basically, in lack of say a machine gun, they could as a platoon or a company put down a hail of rifle fire onto a area and basically deny that area to the enemy, sort of like a dead zone. So that's that. Very, very good rifle. Basically, in all its marks and slight changes, would basically serve the British Army up until the 60s, and when it was really replaced by the 50s and then into the 60s by the SLR, self-loading rifle. Amazing rifle, absolutely amazing. Very, very smooth bolt. Just remove that quickly. Very, very amazing, beautiful, and very, very, very good. Especially rugged rifle as well, and being a shorter rifle than most during that time period, very, very handy within within the positions and that what it was going through, say in the trench or so. But then again, in trench fighting, a rifle is quite cumbersome anyway, really. So guys resort to clubs and revolvers and other such things. So yeah, so that's that. Thank you very much for watching. I hope that's been somewhat useful. I know I've sort of rambled on a bit and gotten slightly distracted, and maybe one or two things might be a bit incorrect, but that's as much as I can really think of today. This has been a sort of off the whim video, really. If I have missed something or been maybe a bit wrong on one things, please put it in the comments below. Whoops, this has just fallen. Please put it in the comments below. I hope you've enjoyed, and goodbye.